to start on your mugs for your next project, so we need to talk about adding handles. Now, there are lots of different ways to add handles. If you ask 6 different potters how to put a handle on an object, they will give you 12 different answers. There are tons and tons and tons of ways to do this. I'm just going to show you the most basic methods, 2 of the most basic methods. And then you can expand from there based on your design. So the 2 most basic ways to add a handle to the side of a mug is to use a coil, which was probably your first thought, and or a slab. And I'll show you how to do both. The biggest thing about handles is that you have to remember that the handle is a functional part of the mug. A hand has to interact with it, and if the handle doesn't work well, if fingers won't fit in it, if you're the point of a handle is to keep your fingers from having to touch the hot side of a cup. So if your handle's not large enough and your fingers can't fit and you're pressed up against the side of the mug, it's going to burn your fingers. By the same token, if the handle is too large and you're holding the mug out here, the center of gravity is going to make it difficult to use if the handle is too large. So you need to think about that as you are adding your handle to your mug. So the first thing is your mug needs to be a little bit stiff. When I squeeze this, it flexes somewhat, but for the most part, this cup is pretty stiff. It's not flexing while I'm working with it because you're going to have to handle it, no pun intended, quite a bit. So the first thing I want to show you, I'll show you how to do it with a coil. I've already pre-made a coil here, and my coil is about as thick as my finger, maybe a little bit thicker. Okay, you don't want a handle that's like a spaghetti noodle. You also don't want a handle that looks like a donut on the side of your piece. It needs to be sturdy, but it also needs to be small enough that it's not difficult to hold. So with my handle, you might be tempted, I'll lay this on its side, you might be tempted to add handles in a shape that looks kind of like this, like a letter C, okay? Attaching the ends of the coil to the cup. This is a really bad way of doing this. First of all, this is way too long. Second of all, I'm not giving this a lot of surface to attach to. There's only this very small area right here and right here that's attaching my mug to my handle. This will probably break off, which is not obviously what we want. So when you're attaching a handle, what you want to do is you actually want to make it more like a question mark. So what you do is the handle should go up above the mug and then come down here. So it looks like, oh, this is hard to do. It looks like a question mark, okay? Or maybe like an ear on the side of your mug. So the top of the handle is actually going downward and the bottom is actually going downward. That's how you want to put a handle on a mug, okay? So what I would do is I've got my basic shape here. I want to make sure I make it the right length. If it's a little too long, I can just trim a little bit off. Okay, again, can I get fingers in here and have it be an appropriate distance from the side of the mug? This is still a little longer than it really needs to be, so I'll take off a little bit more. So I'm just continuing to take more and more clay off until my mug is an appropriate size. Okay, I haven't actually attached it yet, but I want to check to make sure it's the right size. Okay, so that is pretty good. Now what I would do is take my handle and I'm just going to set it aside. Or I could go put it in front of the fan for about 10 minutes. I want it to stiffen up a little bit. So I'm going to set that aside, and we will come back in a few minutes and give it another go once it's a little stiffer. Okay, so now my handle is a little bit stiffer. I've let it dry out some. I might have to smooth out some cracks. That's okay. And when I'm ready to attach it, I want to align it on the side of the pot where I want it. I want to make sure that it's not leaning like this. Make sure your mug is, or your handle is straight up and down, okay? Look at it from this angle and look at it from this angle so that you can see that it is straight up and down. And as always, you need to score and slip. So I've got my serrated rib here. I'm going to score my handle ends. Okay. Again, notice how the surface that I have to attach is much larger now than it was before. And I need to make sure I score in the right location on my mug. Make sure everything is straight. I'm just going to take a little tool here and mark each side of the handle so I know where to score, because I don't want more score marks than I need, because those are hard to smooth out. Add some slip. Always remember to add slip on both surfaces. And attach. Okay, I want to be sure that on the inside here I press firmly, really get that thing locked in. Same down here at the bottom, I want to press firmly. Okay, and then I could smear it in, make it nice and smooth, make it look pretty. Now it's time for the pretty process. I can adjust the shape a little bit. Alright, but you want to make sure that your handle is a little bit stiff when you attach it, because otherwise when it's sitting on the shelf it may start to sag in this area while it's sitting down, which you don't want. So your handle needs to be a little bit stiff when you attach it. Not dry, just a little bit stiff. So that's a simple coil handle. Okay, my fingers fit nicely in the hole. I can support the underneath with my pinky and my ring finger here. And that's a simple coil handle. Okay? Alright, the other way I want to show you how to make a handle is by using a slab. So I have a slab rolled out. When you make a slab handle, you cut a strip of clay out of a slab. So you don't want it to be too thick. Fingers still have to wrap around it. So I have something that is about maybe like a finger and a half wide. Okay, not super thick, but again, you don't want little spaghetti noodle handles. And I'm just going to take a slightly damp sponge and go over it with a little bit of smoothing. Now it's basically the same concept as doing the coil handle. First I will lay it on my mug. Oh, let me cut this end off. Cut this off flat. I'm going to lay it on my mug. I go up and then I go down. Now this clay is very soft, because if the clay were too stiff, this would probably crack while I'm trying to do this. So this is pretty soft, and I've got it laid on there again in that question mark format, going up and then down again. So now that I've got it the size that I want, I'm checking my fingers. I could probably go a little smaller. Do a little check here, see how it looks. Does it fit my fingers well? Are my fingers too far away from the mug or too close to the mug? And once I've got it pretty much where I want it, I'll cut this off. And I'm going to take my handle and I'll go put it in front of the fan and set it aside for a few minutes just to stiffen it up. So I create the handle while the clay is soft, and then I dry it out a little bit just so that it's stiff but can still be attached. So I'm going to go take this to the fan and then we'll come back. Okay, and we're back. So my handle, I've stiffened it up. It's been sitting in front of the fan for a few minutes, and I'm just going to attach it now. Okay, same as before. I gently mark with a tool to find out where I'm going to place my handle. I've checked to make sure it's straight, it's not leaning anywhere I don't want it to. I'm going to gently set this aside. Score, score, score my handle, scoring here as well, and then slip. Slipping both surfaces as always. And remember with that slip you want to give it a push and a wiggle. Push and wiggle in order to really sink it in there. Okay? And now I would just work on smoothing that handle very carefully, making sure not to snap it off. One of the most important things you can remember about handles is do not pick up your project by the handle until it has been fired. Once it's dried out, if you break it off, it is extremely challenging, if not impossible, to fix. So don't mess with the handle, don't pick it up by the handle until after it's been fired. Okay? So now I would want to smooth out things like these lumps here. There's some excess slip right there. Okay, I'm going to get in there with a tool and clean that up, make it look nice. Again, you probably spent a lot of time smoothing the outside of your mug before you attached your handle. Take the time and make it look nice. Okay, handles can be very fancy and handles can be very simple. I'll show you some examples in the next few minutes. Just a quick little thing. One of my favorite things to do with a handle is to just take a tool and put almost like a little button impression in the base. I think it looks nice. It's a personal choice. Some people like to take the inside here and smear it down so it's nice and smooth. Again, just blending it in. It's still scored and slipped, but I'm just smearing this down, and then you can use a tool to blend it in so it's seamless. Okay? Again, there's lots and lots and lots of different ways to make a handle. I encourage you to spend some time online looking up ideas, and then if you need help with something more specific about a handle, you can let me know. Okay? But those are the two handle basics. Thanks for watching. Check out the examples, and we'll see you next time.